Ready to stop spinning your wheels and start moving your business forward? You're in the right place. On each episode of Accelerate to Achieve, we'll discuss a crucial step in the journey, offering tips and advice that you can apply immediately within your own company. From financial management to customer success to digital transformation, we'll cover it all while providing leadership lessons from top industry insiders. In just 15 minutes, you'll be inspired to build momentum through action and achieve incredible results. Welcome to Accelerate to Achieve, the podcast that moves you from question to answer and idea to execution.
Hello, and welcome back to the latest in our Spotlight series on the Accelerate to Achieve podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walter, the founder of Parrels Advisory. You'd be surprised what you can learn from Charlie Brown. He told us that asking for help isn't weak. It's actually a great example of how to take care of yourself. Now, regardless of whether George Schultz or the long-suffering blockhead should get the credit, the fact that if someone who had the football pulled away from him more times than we can count could see the importance of this, we all should. Today, we're incredibly fortunate and lucky to be joined by Holly O'Connell, the founder and executive director of A Path to Hope. A registered nurse by profession, her focus is on helping others navigate the mental health system. Holly knows that everyone has a story, and by choosing to share, we can help them learn from our experiences. Holly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So I'd love to start a little bit with the Genesis story then. So what was the impetus to A Path to Hope's founding?
Well, it's funny. You and I have talked in the past about how almost every nonprofit starts from not necessarily an idea, but an experience. And for us, it was the experience of trying to navigate the mental health system for one of our children. And, I've been a nurse for almost 29 years, close to 30. I didn't want to go that far, but, and it was incredibly difficult to navigate this path. And it should have been much easier, just accessing information, navigating where to go, who to call, what to do. It was incredibly difficult. So in our case, when things settled down for us, I kind of put everything I learned in the process together and formed A Path to Hope to essentially just make it easier for the next person, to make that question of what the heck do I do now have an answer. So that's where A Path to Hope was born.
So I think the other side of this is those who might be struggling or just feeling a certain way, they may hesitate to ask for help. Why do you think that happens?
In many cases, people are either afraid, they're embarrassed, or quite frankly, some people just don't know that what they're going through is something that can be helped. In our son's case, he really didn't know the overwhelming anxiety that he was feeling was something that was not typical. As a young, 17-year-old at the time, these feelings can be so overwhelming. And I think for many, especially young adolescents, young adults, they just don't know what the heck's going on. And they don't even think to notify someone or to verbalize what they're feeling. And for many, they don't know how to put a name to what they're feeling. So a lot of what A Path to Hope has kind of morphed into is trying to educate parents and, the public in general on giving these kids, younger kids especially, a voice and the words to communicate what they're feeling so that, an issue can be recognized before it gets to a crisis situation.
I see a lot of parallels there across the board with those, whether they're founding organizations or starting something new. They often don't know what's going on, or it may not even be pride, but don't want to acknowledge they don't know. So I think it's really interesting to see how these kind of common human experiences often percolate into a number of different spaces that we're all experiencing.
It's true. And what was interesting is when I went, down this path with our son and through the process of getting him help and starting this organization, I realized my own anxiety that I had never realized was right there. I've suffered from migraines for many, many years. And I think part of the impetus for my migraines is the anxiety that goes along with it. And until I recognized that through what my son was experiencing, and I was able to get help for my own anxiety, it was very interesting because it never even crossed my mind that that was part of the reason I was getting migraines, and it was. So, not only have I been able to help my son, I kind of helped myself in this process to deal with something that I didn't even realize I was suffering from. So, that was one example of a mild case, but these kids are under so much pressure. We're in a, in a culture and in a, in our community, we're very focused on success, whether that's academic or personal or athletic or social. And it's just so much pressure that I don't think we even realize we put on our kids. But with social media and with academic awards and these competitions for scholarships to school, and it can be incredibly overwhelming. And I think I don't think it's easy to escape it, even when you try to not put that pressure on your own child. I think it's just in our culture, and we really have to be cognizant of that and really be mindful of checking in with our kids, even when we don't think there's a problem, because like I said, they may not even know what they're experiencing until we maybe point it out or investigate a little bit.
You mentioned, a bit about the founding of the organization yourself. Can you take us through that journey kind of since then? What sort of growth and change have you experienced?
Well, I started out literally, I was at lunch one day with my friend, and I had complained about the system, navigating the system for close to a year. And this was a woman I worked with, and every day at work, just complain, complain, complain. And we went out to lunch one day. It was almost a year to the day that we started this, and I started the process of helping my son, rather. And she looked at me and she said, "Do something about it." And it was literally, Ryan, literally those words. It like hit me like a ton of brick. So I went home, I created a Facebook page. I asked my son, "What do you think of this idea?" We came up with a name, and I just started adding content, just things that I learned, just little tidbits, information. This is what I've learned. This is what you need to do. And I put a little PowerPoint presentation, and I invited a few of my friends over, and I said, "Look, this is what I'm going to start." And I shared our story on my little laptop screen, because I couldn't even figure out how to get it onto a larger screen. And it grew from there. From that, someone said, "Oh, would you talk to our home and school meeting?" And I did that. And then 3 months into the organization, I said, "You know what? I've got to get all this information in front of people. I'm going to have a resource fair." Well, I didn't know how to have a resource fair, but somehow I had a resource fair, and 30 vendors came, and 200 people showed up to that event. 200 people that walked in those doors of the Lineville Middle School Library like, deer in headlights, and walked out with a little bit more confidence and a little bit, shall I say, hope, that they were able to get some answers. And it just has grown from there. We've done presentations to school groups and church groups, and we met with the Boy Scout troop leaders a couple months ago and spoke to them. And we've had, we'd give presentations to the community. We've just opened our physical space in Exton, where we have 1,500 square feet, and we have support groups every other week, and people can come in and get resources. So it's really taken on a life of its own. And I must say, it's really just been driven by community need. It's just, it's kind of been driven not by so much what I expected, but what I thought was needed. And it's just been incredible. It's been incredible to see the response of the community. It's been incredible that every time people say, "Oh, I've heard of a Path to Hope," I'm like shocked. I'm like, "Wow, you did?" Because I'm just so proud of that. We were able to take a very, very dark time in our life and create something that truly has made an impact on our community for the better. And it's taken me a long time to be able to admit that, because a lot of people don't share that they've met with us, or that they've gotten information from us, but I get notes and I get, I've started to get phone calls from people thanking me, and it's just been incredibly, incredibly rewarding.
So looking back, since the onset, what's been the biggest surprise you've encountered through all of this?
I would say just how many people are dealing with this, how many people are either themselves suffering, they have a child who's suffering, a loved one, and are so desperate for just someone to talk to, someone to share their experience with, someone to guide them. And I can tell you firsthand, it is incredibly lonely feeling when, you're first impacted by this and you don't know where to turn. You don't know who to talk to. It's not like you can, bring it up at a cocktail party, "Oh, so, who's your therapist, or does your child need a therapist?" Like, it's not something that you're comfortable talking about. At least I wasn't in the beginning. Now, God help anyone who wants to listen, because I'll talk about it. But it's a very, very lonely, scary, terrifying feeling because, like I said, I'm a nurse. Most things I can fix. If you have a cardiac issue, I know where to tell you to go, and we do this, this, and this. But a mental health issue is different. It's so complex on many different levels, and it manifests itself in so many different ways that um, it's it's a unique approach, I think, to each person. So finding that balance, um, and it's surprising what works for one may not work for another, and what you wouldn't think worked for someone works very well. So I think that's what the most surprising thing to me has been.
So I think if we look at this a little deeper, I think, all organizations aren't the same, and you can say the same for people. Do you see differences for groups such as children compared to, let's say, adults?
I think that, as far as getting help, I think, especially with the younger kids, you almost have that one shot to get it right in the beginning. I think with adults, they're a little more forgiving, and if it doesn't work out with one therapist, they're like, all right, I'll try another approach. But with the younger kids, it takes so much to even get them to the door for that first appointment. And if that's not successful, then it's good luck getting them back. So we've really tried in some of our presentations to really focus on making the best attempt at making that first therapy appointment, or that first care appointment, the best it can be, as far as getting your child involved, finding out who they're more comfortable with, a male or a female, or an older or younger, or even if traditional therapy doesn't work, maybe equestrian therapy or art or music or something, really, really working to make that first attempt at treatment the best it can be.
So for those looking for help but aren't sure where to go, as you said, this really difficult process to navigate, is there a first step you'd recommend?
Funny you should ask. Yes, A Path to Hope, our website literally has where do I start? It has a tab that we walk you through the process. We walk you through how to check out what your insurance benefits are, how to research someone online to make that appointment, things to ask, questions to be cognizant of. When you're searching online, what search engines to use. And then we also have a PDF right on our website where you can download it. And we have a list of area providers that we have been in contact with, or that we have heard good things about. So just to kind of take the guesswork out of it and to give you a place to start. It's not a comprehensive, it's not every single therapist in all of, Philadelphia region, but it's a very comprehensive, a very good list to start and make those first couple phone calls so you can, start the process. So hopefully we do answer that question. What do I do now, through our website?
So this is a very large and complicated space, but there are those out there that are passionate, but feel overwhelmed by it all, maybe not sure where to begin. What suggestion do you have on where they could start to begin helping?
Yes, I mean, I think if everybody just did something, if everyone started, opening up the conversations with their friends and families, if they found something they were passionate about that they could do to help. If they could, walk in a 5K to support mental health awareness, if they could attend a support group to share their story. If they don't want to do that, if they could volunteer, we're always looking for volunteers to, help us with different tasks that we have in the office. So anything that they could do to show that they care, to make that connection with someone, because during that volunteer process, they're going to be sharing their story or hearing other people's story, and even just giving someone an unbiased ear to listen can be a huge help. And I think the more we open up this conversation in our community, a couple of years ago, nobody talked about this. And now you're starting to see celebrities and sports figures admit that they're struggling and that they've sought help. And the more people understand that it's okay, that it's normal, it's a medical issue that, you shouldn't be ashamed of, I think people are going to feel more confident asking for help, sharing their story, reaching out. And I think that's amazing. If everyone did just a little bit, we're going to break down those walls, is what I'm trying to say. That, I think the word stigma is so overused, but it's true. And once we start getting more comfortable with the whole topic, then I think we're going to normalize it, and people are going to reach out for help sooner, and hopefully avoid, a major crisis before it gets too late.
Well, Holly, thank you for sharing your journey and all this wonderful information and advice and guidance with us. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to say for those interested in learning more?
Yes, two things, if you don't mind. I would like to tell people that if they are struggling, don't wait. It's not something that's going to go away. It's not something you can sweep under the rug. If you're worried, have those conversations with yourself or a loved one or your friends or family, whoever you're worried about, and really ask the tough questions. Ask if they're struggling, ask if they need help, ask if they're having suicidal thoughts. It's a topic that needs to be said, and it's not comfortable, but it really needs to be had. And check out our website, apathttohope.org. Have a plan in place. If you're worried about someone, you may not need it, but just have that plan in place. Do some research ahead of time before you're in a crisis situation, or before you need to make that first appointment. Do a little background information, just tuck it away. You'll have the information, and then when you need it, you won't be struggling to find it. But that, the biggest thing is just to not put off. And if you're concerned about someone, step in right away.
And if you didn't catch that all, we're going to include everything Holly has mentioned in the show notes. And we hope you've all enjoyed this latest edition in our Spotlight series. Holly, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And I'd like to thank you all for listening. I look forward to joining you on the next episode. Until then, I'm Ryan Walter, and remember that solving your biggest business problems begins when you decide to accelerate your approach and achieve more.
At Parrels Advisory, our focus is your business's future. Having the right insight, experience, and perspective makes all the difference when tackling far-reaching issues within your company. We are here to simplify the steps, unlock your potential, and move you forward, making your vision a reality. We've helped startups achieve massive growth, mid-sized businesses navigate digital transformation, and enterprises embrace innovation. Wondering how to jumpstart your business and move it forward? Contact us to discuss your audacious goals during a complimentary consultation. Thank you for listening to this episode of Accelerate to Achieve. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen. Got a question, feedback on the program, or interested in being a guest? Simply go to parrels.co/A2A-podcast and send us a message. To learn more about our work or to book a consultation, visit us at parrels.co/contact. Until next time, remember that solving your biggest business problems begin when you decide to accelerate your approach and achieve more.